This video is brought to you by the brand new PopCross Studios Patreon. More on that later in the video. This week, I finally watched Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
What took you so long, idiot?
Then 2 days later, I promptly watched it again because of how fantastic it is. In fact, I wanted to do a full episode based around it and the characters in it, but I also know it's just gone to digital release. I think it's gonna start spreading more through word of mouth because of how great it is, and I know there's probably a lot of people in my audience that haven't seen it yet, but will see it, and I didn't want to spoil anything for it. So I decided instead of doing a full episode around it, I'd do a bit of a compromise and just work Puss in Boots into an episode of taking famous animated characters and turning them into suits of fantasy armor and knights and that sort of thing. Anyway, let's get into the episode. Let's go. Hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like, but either way, enjoy the show.
For centuries, the Kuznet family has provided my world with the greatest suits of armor to ever grace the battlefield or journeys of adventure. We have made armors for some of the most legendary warriors in history, even those many believe to be myths or fairy tales. One such warrior was the infamous outlaw Percival Banderas of the High Boots. Percival was so infamously difficult to capture or kill that people began to claim that he had 9 lives, like is said about kittens. He would even lean into this rumor and wear emblem on cape of kitten's face. He was technically outlaw, and often the Kuznet family will avoid crafting armors for these types, but it was fairly well known that Percival was a warrior for the people, and would often fight against tyrannical rulers to make life better for those who lived under them. I mean, he also took bounty hunting jobs and had tendency to leave towns he visited with significant property damage from his battles, but still well-intended warrior for the most part. To help further prove this, there was one tale of him taking job to go hunt down the last of the Scottish swamp ogres. This was near entirely extinct species, but one last one had been granted protection on its land by Princess the creature had saved from vicious dragon. Princess's father, the king, however, did not like that his daughter had made this land protected space for grotesque creature, so he sent Percival to kill it. Percival arrived on scene, but upon observing creature living innocent life and even living in harmony with strange donkey on its land as well, Percival had change of heart and instead exposed the king's underhanded act to have creature killed. Story gets bit vague from there. Some say the king as punishment was then turned into a frog, but this does not strike me as true and would be quite strange punishment. Though being frog is not necessarily so bad, one of my ancestors has crafted armor for the fabled frog assassin's descendants, who had very full rich lives turned into frogs themselves. Not to name drop other famous warriors my family has worked for. Anyhow, my great-great-grandmother had honor of making armor for Percival Banderas late into his warrior outlaw career. While he was known for being quite evasive and difficult to harm, he had started to find in his later years that he was being struck more and more in battles. While he himself had felt invincible for quite some time and would put himself in very dangerous situations, he now was finding that being killed in battle was very real possibility. At time he came to great-great-grandmother, he was actually being hunted by dangerous bounty hunter himself. He knew little about bounty hunter, but man was so fast with his weapons that Percival was genuinely terrified that this man was going to kill him on next encounter, hence, for first time in life, needing full suit of armor. Was not particularly easy task, as Percival was known for cat-like agility and needed armor that would protect him but also allow him to still be quite nimble. Would have been problem for normal armor crafter, but not for a Kuznet. She gave only few sections of full armor and used very light material, but to give further protection, she crafted incredibly durable leather attire for under the armor that could not easily be pierced through with sword. Even used this leather to line the inside of his fabled high boots. Ironically, the leather was made from the hide of a swamp ogre, but she did not tell him this. She had leather from time when swamp ogres were not endangered, I believe. Anyhow, only trouble she had was with Helmet. He had originally insisted on having Helmet that could still show his glimmering green eyes, as he was somewhat vain man, though to be fair, eyes were apparently very beautiful. Anyhow, upon making this helmet, she deemed it left him too open to strike at face. If Bounty Hunter was as vicious as he claimed, this could be very large vulnerability, so she made him second helmet that covered his full face, which he grudgingly took at first, but later appreciated. As is often the case with Kuznet clients, he was so pleased with armor that he later brought his allies back to have armors made for them as well. But perhaps that is tale for other time. Now, while most of Kuznet family has always ensured to craft armor for only upstanding citizens who do not intend to do harm to the innocent, we have occasionally slipped in this regard. Even I have admittedly crafted armor for some people who turned out to have questionable intentions, not that I knew that at the time. But I have made armors for nobody as despicable as man my great aunt has worked for. She crafted dozens upon dozens of armors for a notorious criminal and his minions. And this was not fun, respectable outlaw like Pussivol. This was outright criminal who stole from whoever he desired, taking whatever he wanted. He would steal massive catapults from wealthy kingdoms, or even apple from small poor child. Was very unpleasant man. Apparently he changed his ways somewhat after having children, but was still not man a Kuznet should have been crafting armor for. Apparently Great Aunt Susanna was so obsessed with strange small warriors who worked for criminal that she could not resist taking job to make armors for them. Perhaps was also somewhat swayed by fact that this criminal apparently had accent very similar to our family, but cannot say for certain. Anyhow, this was first task she was given by criminal, to make set of 3 armors for 3 of his minions, and if she did adequate job, he would hire her to adorn his entire small army. And when I say small, I mean small as in short. All these minions were apparently around 4 feet tall. You see, criminal had enlisted help of wandering pygmy tribe, who had been pushed off their homeland many years ago. I suppose this is somewhat respectable act on his part, giving them some kind of home and employment, but could also possibly have just been him exploiting whole tribe of people for his own benefit. Was many years ago, it's difficult to say now. Anyhow, the very first armor Aunt Susanna made was for a warrior named Stuart. She engraved and painted G onto armor, which was calling card for the criminal, and crafted armor to look somewhat like a species of dragon that reminded her of this small army. You see, there is a species of miniature dragons that only grow to about 12 feet in length, that travel in packs and often find one more powerful dragon to follow and consume the remains of their kills. They are yellow and blue in color, some are cycloptic, meaning having only one eye, while others are not. So she made armor in similar fashion. Her first one for a warrior named Stuart was made to look like cycloptic dragon, and she made various weaponry for him to wield. She made armor very appealing to regard, but on slightly simpler side of what Kuznets would usually make, as she knew she would have to make dozens more, likely in short span of time. She had not yet been given job to adorn full army, but she was a Kuznet. She knew after criminal saw one armor, he would demand more. The number of times someone has been disappointed by a Kuznet armor in our centuries of work could likely still be counted on one hand.
Quick interruption here to say that PopCross Studios does indeed finally have an official Patreon, and if you decide to sign up, the second you do, you get access to every single ink bundle that is currently up on my Teespring store, as well as access to a massive backlog of hundreds of high-resolution drawings from the history of this channel. Lots of people have asked me in the past where they can get high-resolution versions of my art, and until now, there hasn't really been a place besides on this channel. But more importantly than all of that is that every single time I release a video from now on, a day after the video's released, to avoid spoiling things for people, I will put up high-resolution versions of the art and the inks on the PopCross Studios Patreon. Every episode, every drawing. And Patreon members can download them and do what they want with them. I do want to make clear though that I'm still going to be doing polls on YouTube for everyone to participate in, and people who are a part of the Patreon won't get special treatment when it comes to community redraws. I still value everybody's submissions and everybody's opinions on what videos I should make, not just people who are signing up to give me money. And hopefully this will just be good for everyone watching, because if I have another stream of income not as tied to my videos doing well, I won't have to think about appeasing the algorithm when I decide what weird videos or even Multiverse Tales episodes to make. Thank you so much to everyone who checks it out. It's $5 American per month, it's linked in the description, and I hope it's a good value to everyone that decides to sign up. But now back into more art. Art which will be available a day from now in the PopCross Studios Patreon. Just reminding. Okay, back into it.
Now I could regale you with more and more tales of my ancestors' armors, but you're likely wondering by now, what about my own? Fear not, as I am certainly not one to shy away from telling tales of my greatest armor achievements, which are many in numbers. One that I was actually given opportunity to patch up recently was that of young explorer woman visiting our lands from the Polynesian Isles. She was traveling with dragon unlike anything I'd ever seen. It had the ability to retract its wings inside its body, along with other parts of itself. Could change from very cute looking wingless drake to, well, still fairly cute dragon, but somewhat less cute. Anyway, Explorer Woman claimed that the dragon had been made by a mad sorcerer, who had in fact made hundreds of other monstrous dragons and creatures. Her and her dragon creatures' charge was to find and slay or capture these creatures, or at least ensure they were doing no significant harm. They had already done so with majority of creatures on their home islands, but were now seeking ones that had escaped onto mainland. Bold Explorer Girl had heard tales of my armors while traveling nearby and came seeking one herself. I would have happily crafted her weapons as well, but she already carried two that she had made herself as traditional weapons from her homeland. They were simple but quite intriguing and gave me some ideas for future weapons I could design. Anyhow, she wanted armor to also pair nicely with her dragon ally. She even had some of creatures' teeth that had fallen out in battles that I could use to further adorn her armor. I inquired as to whether I could take some of Creature's fur to use, but Creature itself adamantly opposed me touching it. So instead I used fur from other Creature, and simply dyed it blue to look like it came from Strange Dragon. I also attempted to make armor somewhat reflect those of people from her home islands. Was not first time I have made armor for warrior from these lands, so I had familiarity with armor styles. Though they do fight clad in very little, as they are incredibly confident and proud warriors, so of course had to add plenty of Kuznet family flair to suit as well. I assumed she was quite pleased with armor, but only confirmed this later, as she initially left in big hurry. I only found out why when she returned few months later to have armor repaired. She and Dragon Ally had long been hunted by large muscular men in shark-like armor. He wanted to kill her dragon ally for being abomination of magic, but clearly regardless of circumstances of Creature's creation, it had found suitable home and family with Explorer Girl, and was doing good things. So I happily provided them with more resources to help further defend against Sharkmen in the future. Now, one thing you should know about myself is I do believe people deserve chance at redemption. I say this because some people I have crafted armor for have done some very unpleasant things in past. But if they change their ways and begin to do good for others, I am willing to consider crafting for them. This was case with warrior from the Savage Saber tribe. His people are known for being relentless killers who will weaken the morale of their enemies by stalking and killing their children. I would obviously not make armor for such people on normal occasion, but warrior named Diego came to me, along with his strange group of travelers, long after he had left this tribe and changed his ways. You see, his tribe leader had once charged him to hunt down the baby of a rival clan's chief. He began on this hunt and chased down mother who carried child, but she evaded him by leaping with baby off of waterfall. She was killed in fall, but somehow the baby was fine. Must have been very adorable baby, though apparently was also very ugly baby as well. But who knows, may grow up to be handsome child. My brother Voslo was also very unattractive baby, but is generally regarded as good looking man now. Anyhow, child was found by two wanderers who made it their mission to get child back to parents, recognizing the cloth and patterns it was wrapped in from the specific tribe it was from. Warrior Diego found them and tried to trick them into giving him child, but they saw through his facade. Eventually, through traveling with these wanderers on journey to bring child home, Diego found he enjoyed company of these people more so than his own tribe. Stepping away from his own people allowed him to see how truly ruthless and cruel they were. Sometimes to get clear perspective on our own lives, we need chance to stand back from them. Instead of taking child to be killed, Diego helped his new allies to return the child, and in the process had to fight off his own people. It was some time later that he and his new allies found me, requiring armor for their next adventures. I was skeptical, recognizing some telltale signs of a member of the Saber tribe, but was then told this tale of his redemption and was willing to make him armor. Admittedly, while the Saber tribe is infamously cruel, they do have appealing aesthetic in many regards. Because of this, in crafting armor for Diego, I took some inspiration from his old tribe, but made sure armor was distinct enough to not mistake him as Saber warrior anymore. I did not have any saber fangs in stock unfortunately, but used teeth from other dragons to adorn his attire and give him Sabertooth-like blades to be used as his weapon of choice. While he did have most dubious past of his allies, admittedly, his armor was most fun to craft. Anyhow, you are a very good listener, I must say. Have not interrupted once, and I do appreciate this. And those were just small number of tales I have. Would you like to hear more, friend Starling?
Yeah, I mean, these are great, and besides, I don't think Heath and Tayron are ready yet for a dragon hunt anyway, so go for it.
Excellent! Let me think, which tale do I tell next?
As much as it would have been fun to work with a particular character from Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, it was also fun working with a variety of characters from a bunch of different animated studios. And I'd love suggestions for other characters I could use if you want to see a follow-up to this, or just turned into other things. And if you enjoyed this, I'd highly recommend checking out my famous Fairy Tales as Fantasy Warriors episode. That's one of my favorite episodes on the channel. But I'll link the whole playlist at the end of this video. And besides that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or inspiring note. And today's thought is actually, I had something else planned, but just before recording I went on a walk with my dad, and he asked me something that I think is just such a fantastic thing for anyone to ask in any of their relationships with whoever. He asked me, what could I do to be a better father to you? And I think that just edited to whoever else in your life, asking what you could do to be a better son, better friend, better boyfriend, girlfriend, any of that can just make your relationship that much better in a short amount of time possibly. Because we all do things, little things that bug each other, even if we love someone and are very close with someone, that if you just ask what you could do slightly differently, or, you know, it might be a big thing, but odds are there are things that you might do that bug someone you love that if you just open the floor in an innocent and curious way to see what you could be doing better, they'll tell it to you and it might be something that you could change very easily. I hope I articulated that well. I kind of yammered it out because it was less planned than my usual ones, but I just really appreciated that my dad asked that, so thank you to him, and highly recommend that anyone else give that a shot too. I hope that's inspiring to someone out there. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Monday. Goodbye.